Hi everyone, this is Nick Mueller, your writing mentor for English 105. In this video, I'm going to talk about the peer review worksheet here for Project 1. Occasionally, I might refer back over here to the profile grading rubric for Project 1. You'll find this in Module 6, and this is for the revised draft. So this is a good way to hold yourself accountable, and not just your peers, but yourself. Because it's kind of like a checklist as well as a rubric, right? So you can see, like, this is the 3 level of the learning contract rubric over here in this left column, right? And this is like the 0, which we want to avoid. So consider this your checklist for the rhetorical situation, introduction, developments to the profile, integration of research materials, conclusion, the writing processes, the knowledge of conventions, the infographic, and not so much the multimodal analysis for your draft, but then your revision reflection could help. Think of your cover letter self-assessment in this regard, perhaps. All right. That is a pretty big checklist. All right, so first question, do the title and introduction paragraph clearly introduce the organization being profiled? Do they make you, the reader, want to read on? If not, why, and what might the author do to make the introduction more engaging for the audience? Well, this is like its own little checklist. What goes into the introduction, some context about the organization, the community it occurs in, belongs to, a definition of what the organization is and what they do for folks in the community. And then if your peer's submission is missing some part of that, of what I just listed, let them know. Let them know how they can maybe compose a hook in terms of the title, or maybe the first sentence of the introduction to draw the audience in. 2, after reading the introduction, who seems to be the audience for this profile? Okay, there's a helpful audience identification tool if you're having trouble with this one in Module 3. It's, I think, audience awareness or audience analysis tool. So check that out. What is the main idea about the organization that the author will discuss in the profile? I guess you could say another way of phrasing this is what is the group's or the organization's purpose within the community? If either of these are unclear, how might the author provide greater clarity in the introduction? This is an invitation to comment on, what's missing. Does there need to be more context? Does there need to be more of a definition of what the group is and does, their situation within the community? And this is a profile. It's not a narrative essay. It's not a 5-paragraph essay. So we want to have like third-person singular about the group. It's not a paper that is about us. So we want to avoid the first-person singular I, because that would be a personal narrative, more like. And we want to keep the focus on the organization, whichever organization you might have chosen or your peers chosen. So keep that convention or those conventions in mind. Is there enough background and or context on the organization and is it interesting to you? Are there enough details to help you understand the organization? And sometimes this is kind of moving on to the later part of the paper, I think. Oftentimes the details can be sensory details, like what the space looks like, if you can see the space where the group works, if you can watch a video online on YouTube or the organization's social media page, something to make it more tangible for the readers. Again, if your peer hasn't done something along these lines, if one of these things is missing, be specific and let them know how they can improve. And it's okay to offer suggestions for improvement. 4, are the primary source materials interviews effectively incorporated into the profile? Why or why not? Effective incorporation usually means proximity, in my opinion. Like if you make a claim about the group, is there some evidence, primary or secondary, that soon follows in support of that claim. Multiple perspectives, that means someone from within the organization, someone who has been helped by the organization, someone from adjacent organization that works with the main organization of focus. How are these perspectives integrated? Does it come from secondary sources? Does it come from primary sources? Is that primary or secondary source material offered in the form of text? Is it in the form of video? Is it in audio form? If it isn't in audio form or video form, could it be more effective if it were in one of those mediums? Or otherwise multimodal? Does the author provide new insight into the issue and organization? I think for most organizations that are like unique to a community, this will be fairly straightforward because, you know, I've read plenty of these profiles, and most of them are from communities I've never been to and have no knowledge of. So if you find yourself, you know, reading your peer's profile and you think, well, what's local about this? It might be time to encourage your peer to make it more local, to add that local color that makes it unique to Omaha or Seattle, wherever. Does the author incorporate secondary sources? I think that my remarks on primary sources kind of explain that one already. Conclusion. Does it summarize the main ideas and offer a clear takeaway for the reader? What is effective? What needs improvement? Conclusion kind of draws the threads of what preceded together, the main ideas, like maybe maybe even draws together the imagery, the visuals that have been included in a different way in words. Usually we want to end on a on a high note to make it, you know, an appealing read. We all like a happy ending, right? Is the profile well organized? The topic sentences, typically the first sentence of each new paragraph, link the discussion from the previous paragraph to the current one. If you're having trouble with this, read what your peer has written aloud. If it feels like there's a gap, like try to think of why there might be a gap here, why it might feel awkward. Is there something missing in between the end of paragraph A and the start of paragraph B? And if you ask yourself that question, you'll usually be able to answer it in terms of like what's missing or what could serve as a more effective transition. It's the central point of the profile maintained throughout the piece. That is, does the author deviate significantly from describing the group's purpose within the community? Like this is usually about specifics here, indicate areas where the organization could be stronger. I mean, maybe the writing about the organization could be stronger. Usually it's specifics, especially sensory details. Sometimes also primary and secondary sources. Does the author provide in-text documentation? Is the APA stuff there? It's either there or it's not. If it's not, do your best to help based on what Purdue OWL says. Again, this is a draft, so it doesn't have to all be there, but if you can offer some helpful guidance, by all means do so. After reviewing the infographic, what stands out to you the most? Explain how it addresses the 8 principles, characteristics of an infographic as listed by Bull's article. Identify and discuss any that are missing. So this is kind of like a checklist, right? Is it 6 out of 8? Is it 7 out of 8? Is it 8 out of 8? Now, they can all be there, right? But they can also be out of balance, right? So consider not just like checking the boxes of all 8 things, but consider how those characteristics, how those principles relate to one another, and if they're out of balance somehow, how they could be more balanced in regard to themselves. And again, it's totally okay to offer helpful suggestions. How are the following visual design principles utilized? What is effective? What needs improvement? Again, you can refer back to the design principles reading to get some further insight on contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. Or you can, of course, ask me or your instructor, because we're all here to help you. All right. 13. Does the infographic clearly highlight the main ideas from the written text? What is effective? What needs improvement? If there's not an infographic, what are a couple ways you can think they might visually represent the information analyzed in this paper? Okay, so the infographic is a genre unto itself. Like the profile is a genre to itself, and they've got each genre has its own conventions. And this means each genre has its strengths, right? And sometimes one genre can show what another cannot. So consider, what can your infographic show that your text doesn't do a great job of showing? This is great for your peers. It also can be very useful for your own profile in an infographic, because visuals are so catchy. They're more immediate and emotionally affecting, because human beings, we're such visual creatures, right? So consider what your peer's infographic could be doing, based on the text that you've already read, that you've read from your peer, and offer some suggestions if at all possible. Anything else? Global issues is composition speak for stuff like organization, providing primary and secondary source evidence, following the conventions of a profile, right? Profile is a genre. It's not a first-person narrative. It's not a 5-paragraph essay. It's got its own conventions, like it's about the group or the organization. It's not about the person who's writing about the group. We want to see multimodality, which can often be an issue, global issue, throughout a paper or throughout a profile. A global issue can also be citations, since those are all throughout a paper, right? So I think you're getting the idea there. And again, it's totally okay to offer helpful suggestions. Make sure those suggestions are about the work, about the writing, about the infographic, and not about your peer. So, this infographic could include these other things, not like you forgot to put this in your infographic, because writing is very personal, and we're writing about the things we've chosen to write about because we have some emotional connection with them, and that's kind of makes us vulnerable, right? So let's do our best to respect that and help each other out. All right, if there's anything else I can help you sort out, please let me know at my email or through Canvas message, or also feel free to contact your instructor if you've got questions. All right, thank you very much for listening. I hope this was helpful.